Hi, everyone. Thank you. Welcome for being here for today's webinar, What You Need to Know, Microsoft Service Update 10043. I'm Aaron Klein, the Marketing Director here at Avantico. We've got a great line of experts with us today, each bringing valuable insights to help you prepare for this update. Director of Managed Services and Strategic Initiatives, Chris Barbera, will be kicking things off with a breakdown of the 2025 One Version Update cadence and best practices. D365 Finance Consultant and Director of Business Applications Consulting, Brandon Nash, will walk us through key new and enhanced features in D365 Finance. And then Senior D365 Supply Chain Consultant Michael Kavanaugh will cover the latest enhancements and updates in D365 Supply Chain Management. Chris will be taking over here shortly, but before we dive into today's session, I'd love to share with you some of the other upcoming exciting events and webinars that we have on the docket. So first off, on March 18th, 10 a.m. Pacific, join us for Optimizing Approvals with Power Automate Workflows. Learn how you can streamline your approval processes and minimize licensing costs with Power Automate Workflow approvals, routing approvals directly to Teams, Outlook, or custom Canvas apps. And then for those of you in the logistics space or the Chicago area, we will have a booth at ProMat 2025. This is a massive logistics center trade show for March 17th to 20th. Attendance is free, and we would love to see you there. We'll have more events and webinars coming up as we move through Q2, so be on the lookout for those. And be sure to let us know in chat if there's anything you'd really like to see from us in the future. All registration links for these events will be available in the chat on our website and linked within the slide deck. And then one last note, as we move through the presentations today, we've kind of got a lot to get through, but do not hesitate to pop any questions you have into the chat, and we'll answer them in the open Q&A at the end of the presentations. And with that, Chris, if you'd like to jump in, it is all you.
Excellent. All right, let's get to the next slide here. Good morning or afternoon, everybody. It's great to see so many attendees. I see a few familiar names on the list as well, some of our managed service customers and new people as well. So before we get into the individual content of some of the changes and important updates, both in the finance area and supply chain, for people that are unfamiliar with the process of the service updates, I'm going to go briefly over kind of an overview of how this works, and then we'll get into those individual content, and then be able to take questions here at the end. Great. All right, Aaron, let's go to the next one. Okay, so for people that don't know, there are four service updates a year for Dynamics 365 Finance and Supply Chain. Each of these updates includes hundreds of changes for quality, which are bug fixes in Microsoft speak, platform updates, UI changes and such, regulatory updates and new features, and modifications to existing features. The maximum of one update can be skipped. So what this means is for everyone on the call, if you're on D365 Finance and Supply Chain now, you'll have at least 2 updates that are required per year. Some of our customers opt to take 3 or 4, depending on when their busy seasons are and when they don't want to be taking updates. But at least 2 of those are mandatory. If you don't take an update, unfortunately, Microsoft does it for you. And I like to say auto updates are great for your iPhone, not so great for your enterprise applications. What can happen is ISVs potentially can stop working, custom code, things like that. So it's always very important to make sure that you test carefully and plan that out well in advance. Now, if you are currently on version 10.041, then this version that's coming out now in mid-March, and we'll go over the schedule here in a minute, will be required for you. If you're on update 42, you can skip 43. So most of the time schedules I'm going to be talking about today are based on the fact that 43 would be mandatory for you, and that means you didn't take 42, which you hopefully should be about finishing up. We have about 10 customers we're moving to 42, and we're just about finishing those up. All right, next slide. So if we look at the time schedule here, again, this assumes 43 is mandatory and you have the optimal lifecycle services settings. If you don't have them optimally, you may have even less time than I show you here. But the generally available update for 43 will be published on March 14th. Hopefully you need to make sure that you have paused window 1, which you can do through LCS. And then the dates, the latest possible updates are 5.9 for your UAT environment and 5.16 for your production environment. Now, this is what Microsoft is publishing. I'm going to show you what we recommend. Go to the next one here. So we recommend right now you're contacting your ISV partners, getting any updates, planning out with your team when you'll be doing that testing. And then we recommend the earliest time to start merging code in your ISV solutions is March 17th. That will give you about a 5-week time window, and we recommend that people are live on version 43 if it's mandatory for you by 4/21. I'd be asking why, if my auto update doesn't happen until 5/9, why do we recommend 4/21? You'll see a 2-week buffer in there. The reason for that is we just have to go back to June of last year when we had that CrowdStrike issue. I think caused massive disruptions at a lot of IT departments. We had many customers ready to move to production for an update that weekend when it occurred. And although D365 did not go down, their IT departments were obviously slammed with other issues. And by having that 2-week contingency, we were able to revise what we were doing and still not hit that auto update window. So that's why we always suggest having about a 2-week buffer between those time periods. Okay. All right, next slide. This is just a list of where you can get all the updates. As you can see, unfortunately, Microsoft spreads them out across many different areas. And then we just click 2 more times here. We do offer a highlight deck, which you're going to see a lot of the details we're going to talk about today of the key features. They're changed in 43, but there are many others. And we produce a deck for all of our managed services customers that will show all the key updates, many more than we'll be able to talk about in the time frame today. If you are interested in receiving that, feel free to put like deck in the chat and we'll make sure you get a copy of that. If you are a managed services customer already, we'll be sending those out, I think, Friday of this week to you. It'll cover everything we talked about today, plus many more things. So great. All right, try to go fast because we have a lot of great individual content here as well. Next slide, please. All right, one other thing before we get into the individual content, we would like to offer a 1-hour free collaboration call for people that are not already our managed services customer to help you put together a roadmap of when you will be taking the service updates throughout the next year. So this is an hour call, there's no obligation, there's no cost to it. We'll talk with you about when your busy seasons are, explain the update schedule. We'll briefly, if you have access to Microsoft Lifecycle Services, make sure that your settings are set optimally. And then we'll go through that with you and come back on a separate call and give you a visual representation of when we think you should be taking your service updates. And now, if you're interested in that, feel free to put roadmap in the chat, and we'll reach out to you about setting up a time for that. All right, great. Well, let's get into the awesome content we have prepared with our experts today, and really appreciate everyone's time. I think we have Brandon up first. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, I was about to say, I'm assuming that's my cue to tee off, Chris. So thank you very much. Hello, everyone. My name is Brandon Nash. As Aaron noted, I'm the Director of Business Application Consulting here at Avantico and a Senior Finance Solution Architect within the D365 application. So what we're going to cover today are a few of the new features that are in the finance area with the 10.0.43 update. And then we'll also cover just talk about a few. I'll present on some of those new features and show you kind of the new functionality in action. And then I'll also present on a couple of the feature enhancements that are going to be happening. So features that are already in the system that are already potentially enabled and how they've been enhanced, with this new 43 version. So this new version of 43 for D365. So go ahead, Aaron, and move forward with the slide, and we'll just talk about one of the new features that's coming up. So first up that is new and available to us is the enable non-retrievable purchase orders page for purchase order year-end processing. So if you're using budget control and encumbrance processes with your purchase orders, then you know that you need to be able to run the purchase order year-end process as you prepare for your year-end close. And this new feature is a cool feature because it allows you to see those purchase orders that are not retrievable through the year-end process. So because basically when you're running your purchase order year-end process, you're able to run it for the specific fiscal year, retrieve those purchase orders, and then process them. So that way those purchase orders that have a confirmation or an encumbrance or have budget control enabled are able to be closed out for that fiscal year and then reopened in the new fiscal year. Well, when it comes to trying to retrieve and decipher which purchase orders are available, because maybe the numbers aren't adding up in terms of what you had open versus what needs to be moved to the next fiscal year, this new feature for the non-retrievable purchase orders is what allows you to do that. And it's enabled through feature management, which I'm going to show you right now and kind of walk you through what that process looks like. I'm going to take the screen share from Aaron for just a minute or two. and walk you through this process. So the first thing I want to do is show you, as you saw in the slide deck there, was what the feature looked like when it turned on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into our general ledger module, go through the period close node and select the purchase order year-end process. So as you can see, when you don't have this feature enabled, there's no non-retrievable purchase orders button here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the feature management workspace, and we will go to the budgeting module, and you can see enable non-retrievable purchase orders for your purchase order year-end process, and we'll enable that. Let me refresh my browser. Once I refresh the browser, I can navigate back to that purchase order year-end process, and now you can see I have non-retrievable purchase orders. So when you start this process, I'll click the retrieve purchase orders button, and I'll just leave this wide open to collect it. And I can see one of my purchase orders, but I processed 2 of them earlier for this exact demo, and I can't see it. So I can go to this non-retrievable purchase orders form, and I can have my fiscal year in here, and I click apply parameter, and the apply parameter comes in. So I can see there's a couple of different parameters that need to be, or a couple of different criteria that need to be satisfied in order for your purchase order to be available in that purchase order year-end process. And so one of the first things is that your PO status needs to be either open order or received. Your approval status for your purchase order should be confirmed, because that's the encumbrance that it comes with that. And then the last accounting event in the fiscal year must be set to yes. Is the purchase order status correct? That's another parameter where it's looking to see what's your status, and this is checked off for yes. Is the purchase order approval status correct? Then that should be the case. And then the same thing is the latest accounting event date correct? So all those things need to be applicable, and then that's where your purchase orders get received. And so I have one in here for purchase order number 48 that has an open order, which is correct, but the approval status is not correct. And is the purchase order approval status correct? And that's a no. So that's where the issue is. So what I would do is I would be able to see this, and I can go into my purchase orders and make this correction. So basically confirm it so that it's ready to go. So what I'm going to do here is I can click directly on this link to go to my purchase order, or I can navigate to the purchase order through the purchase order module, procurement, or accounts payable. And I can come in here and I can click purchase. I already have the lines teed up in terms of the financial dimensions and the purchase order, so we can save time there. I'm going to confirm this PO. Okay, so purchase order confirmation is complete. I can go back, refresh my form, click apply parameter, and now you can see that purchase order number 48 is removed from the list. And so when I come back to my retrieve purchase orders form, and I go to retrieve purchase orders, and then I click OK. Now I can see my purchase order. So now I can move forward with my purchase order year-end process as I normally would when I've gone through and validated that all of my purchase orders are complete. So this new feature here is very valuable when it comes to being able to validate your purchase orders and being able to actually dig in and see where they are without having to navigate through each individual purchase order within the purchase order form in the procurement and sourcing module. So that's one of the new features that is available to us. I'm going to stop sharing so we can pull up the presentation and talk about the next feature. Okay, so the next feature here has to do with the modern bank reconciliation. So a few versions ago, there was a modern bank reconciliation enhancement feature that was enabled with the advanced bank reconciliation function, and it kind of changed the interface, and it allowed you to be able to create some new transactions, like being able to create a payment journal, being able to generate vouchers, and so on. But one of the things that it was lacking at that time was being able to set offset account financial dimensions, particularly when it came to the general ledger voucher posting. And that's a voucher posting that occurs, for example, when you have a scenario such as bank fees that come onto your bank statement. You import your bank statement and it has all of your outgoing payments. It has a lot of your receipts, and it may even have, you know, fees that the bank will charge you. And that's where you have the system. If you have a reconciliation matching rule in order to generate that transaction in the system. Well, the issue that this particular feature solves is that now you can actually preset the financial dimensions when you have your matching rule automatically create the transaction, or you can manually select the financial dimensions if you're going to manually create the new transaction with that bank fee. So I'm going to walk you through what that process looks like, because now this feature allows your streamlining of your bank reconciliation process to be that much more efficient within the system. So I'm going to take the screen share one more time, and I'll be going and doing this a couple of different times. So just bear with us here. Okay. So I already have imported a bank reconciliation, a bank statement in my cash and bank management module. So if I go here and I go into my bank accounts, I can show you here, I have a bank statement that I've already imported here. And it's been confirmed, and it has a couple of different transactions. It's got, you know, a payment, it has a receipt, a payment receipt from a customer. And then I have my bank fee that's getting automatically charged to my account that I want to be able to create that voucher for. So what I'm going to do from this modern bank reconciliation interface, I can go to my reconciliation worksheet. I can also navigate to that reconciliation worksheet directly from the bank account. And you can see in here, we have the generate voucher. So what this allows me to do is, if I select this bank fee that I was talking about, I can click generate voucher here. And now as you can see, without the feature enabled, there's no offset account financial dimensions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to what I did before, is I'm going to go back into feature management. We'll enable this feature here. Refresh my browser. And now I'm going to go back to my bank account. Like I said before, I can go directly to my bank reconciliation worksheet from the bank account. As you can see, there's a couple of different ways to navigate in and out of the system if you're familiar with the D365. So now when I select my voucher, I can click generate voucher manually. And now I have my offset account financial dimensions that I can define here manually. And this is the new feature that allows you to do. The cool part about it is that it's also applicable on the matching rule. So when you run your matching rule, it can automatically create for you. So let's walk through what that looks like. So if I go to my matching rule in the cash and bank management module, reconciliation matching rules under advanced bank reconciliation setup, I can go to my bank fee rule that I have in place. Click on the financial details for the voucher parameter. That's going to generate my voucher for me. I have my offset account predefined. I have my department predefined. I also have my offset account financial dimension predefined here for department, but this can be changed as well. And that's the flexibility that the system allows you to have. So we say, okay, we come back here and I go into my bank account again. Select my advanced bank reconciliation bank, click on worksheet. Now I'm going to run my matching rules. So I'm expecting this matching rule for 475 and this matching rule for 698 to be automatically matched. This reconciliation rule for 302 has a little bit of some investigation that needs to happen. So just ignore the pink bar that comes up when that appears. So let's go through and run the matching rule. And I'll just run this matching rule set for both of those transactions and click OK. So what we can see here is we can see I have my two matching rules that got created. So I have two transactions that were matched. So when I refresh my form, those two transactions drop off. I can go to my matched transactions and I can see that these two transactions were matched. And most importantly is I can see my generate voucher rule was automatically created for that $1,000. So the voucher hasn't been posted just yet because I haven't reconciled the bank statement. But when I click on accounting, I can see main account for my bank account, I can see the offset account that I defined in my matching rule, and I can see the financial dimension that was already predefined in the matching rule. So whether you select it manually because you're doing it step by step, or if you have it set up predefined on your matching rule, the system will generate that transaction for you, set the postings. So now when you have that being done for hundreds of transactions across check payments, customer receipts, bank fees, and so on, those things can happen automatically for you. And now you're ready to reconcile your bank statement in a more efficient manner. Okay, let's move forward to the next one. Aaron, if you want to pull up the other PowerPoint slide for us. Okay, this is another feature that was enhanced on top of the features that were already there. So as you guys are aware, like I think a year ago or so, financial tags were introduced, and it just gave us another way to identify transactions within D365 that are not tied to financial dimensions. Well, Microsoft has taken it a step further by having the financial tags now available in the Accounting Source Explorer list page. So what this allows us to do is it allows us to be able to use and see our financial tags and filter on those in the Accounting Source Explorer. So I'm going to walk you through what that actually looks like when talking about using this in a general journal voucher or an accounts payable invoice voucher or wherever else you may use your financial tags. You'll now be able to see those in Accounting Source Explorer, which will just give you some more in-depth reporting when it comes to validating and finding and investigating on your financial transactions. Okay, so I already have this feature enabled. So let me get ready to preview here. I'm going to take the screen share. Just validate that I have that feature enabled. So we have the enable financial tags for Accounting Source Explorer. As you can see, again, enable financial tags for purchase order invoicing. So the financial tags is just continuing to be enhanced and robust over time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to navigate to the AP module and go into my invoices and select a vendor invoice. I already have an invoice teed up, so you don't have to watch me create lines for this transaction. And so what I've done here is I've created two invoices for two vendors, and I've already added the financial tags in here. So I have a financial tag for a worker record, and I also have 3 different financial tags for reservation ID, worker record for the journal entry expense, and then another one for web demonstration, so we can identify those really easily in the Accounting Source Explorer. And that's going to be applicable to the AP main account that's associated with the vendor, but most importantly, it's also going to be applicable to the offset account that you see in here. And this is where we're going to be able to see this pretty quickly in the Accounting Source Explorer. So once I post this transaction, as of demo data from 2017, which is a lifetime ago now. And once we have this post, we should be able to go and navigate to the Accounting Source Explorer in the General Ledger module. Under Inquiries and Reports, we can come to Accounting Source Explorer. I'm going to use my advanced filtering function to find those accounts or find those transactions. So we'll look at that as of the 8th, and we'll look at our main account that I used for the offset and click OK. And so here are my transactions. And at the far end here now is where you would see your Accounting Source or your financial tags within the Accounting Source Explorer. So again, prior to this latest release that's coming up, you didn't have these transactions or these columns in this report, and now you do. And just like any other report, you can now move these around and put them where they're more relevant, so you don't have to scroll all the way across the screen in order to see the transaction. And then obviously you would use the save as feature to save this particular view either publicly for your entire company, publicly for a group of users, or just for yourself. So there's some cool functionality in there that has now been enhanced in terms of the financial tags that we're hopefully using more regularly now. Okay, let's pull up the PowerPoint one more time for the last feature that is being featured as far as a new feature in D365, and that's the ability to cancel the payment journal that gets created from the bank reconciliation worksheet. So you can see here in the screenshot, we have the cancel payment function. And what this allows you to do is this allows you, similar to what we saw with the generate voucher function, where we're able to create the transaction, you have that same capability now with the generate payment journal, where you're able to define the offset accounts that are available to you, or the offset account as well as the offset financial dimensions that are available when they're associated with that transaction. So when you utilize the generate payment journal function from the bank reconciliation module and that bank reconciliation interface, when that gets created and prior to you reconciling your bank statement, if you know that you need to be able to cancel that payment, then you would be able to do that here with the cancel payment journal or cancel payment button on the bank reconciliation form from matched transactions. Now, unfortunately, there's still some investigation that I'm doing right now with this feature in order to get to this step, because the generate payment journal function, like I showed you before, when I was doing the matching rule, it didn't generate that payment for me. And so I'm still doing some investigation and following up with Microsoft in order to get to that step where we can cancel the payment journal. But as far as new features go and some of those functions that I just demonstrated to you, those are a lot of new features that are coming out with this 10.0.43 enhancement. Now, the next thing we want to talk about are some of the features that have already been existing, but now are going to be a little further enhanced when it comes to D365 and some of the new features. And these have to revolve around fixed assets and a couple of other features within D365. So one of the first features is this ability to automate split transaction postings from the main book to a derived book. So what that means is, when you have fixed assets, this feature came out with the ability to split transactions, came out a little over half a year ago. And now you are able to split a fixed asset into multiple fixed assets. And so what's the example, or why would you need this feature? So let's say, for example, you are purchasing a number of fixed assets in bulk, let's say 5 laptops, and you're getting a good deal on them where, there's about 700, you would pay $700 per laptop instead of $1,000 per laptop if you were to buy 5 or 6 of them in bulk. But at the end of the day, you want to be able to take those 5 laptops that you're purchasing and you want to be able to track them in the system individually. Well, instead of having to purchase them individually in the system one by one, what you can do is you can use this quick split fixed asset function in D365 without creating a bunch of purchase orders for the one fixed asset that you create. So what this will look like is you would create one fixed asset and you would purchase it for, like I said, $3,500, for example, knowing that a percentage of those assets, or percentage of that asset, is going to be broken up into multiple fixed assets. So this split asset function allows you to be able to define a percentage that says, for my 5 or 4 or how many that I purchased, I want to take 25% of that and apply it to a new fixed asset. So now all you're doing is creating the fixed asset, the new fixed asset, using this split function, and now the system will track it. And the other cool thing about this feature that I think most resonated with me when I was testing it was that it uses the main book. So as you can see here, this SL service line depreciation profile, which is the main book associated with it, and all of its derived books, such as the federal or state tax or other books that you would have with it. When you split this off for that one book, it's going to create the same transaction for all the derived books all in one step. And so we don't have the time for me to go through a full demonstration with you, but I am going to show you what that actually looks like in D365. So just bear with me here while I go and navigate to our fixed assets area. So when I go into fixed assets and I select my fixed asset, we have an example here where I did that exact example where I purchased multiple fixed assets, but under one fixed asset here. So I had this value initially created at $5,000. I used the split asset function within here to create a new fixed asset, or associate those amounts with the new fixed asset that I created. So you can see with the transaction, there's been an adjustment for that value. And what that allowed me to do is it allowed me to create this new fixed asset here with the value of $1,000. But like I said, the key function that this new feature allows, or the enhancement of this feature allows you to see, is that it creates that transaction and applies it to all of the derived books associated with that fixed asset. So that all happening in one step is a very key feature in terms of the enhancement associated with this feature. Okay, let's move forward with a couple of more, and then we'll wrap up things for finance. Okay, so we'll just talk through this one really quickly, but this was the generate payment journal, the step before being able to cancel the payment journal associated with the bank reconciliation. This generate payment journal feature now has the same feature as those generate vouchers, is that you're able to have the offset financial dimensions associated with the offset account when you create a general payment journal voucher. When you create a payment journal voucher from the modern bank reconciliation workspace. So this is just another one of those features that was enhanced, that already existed and was included with this new version of D365. Aaron, we can move forward to the next slide. So this is a feature within fixed assets that allows the depreciation to be calculated and addressed and adjusted when the placed in service and disposal are in the same fiscal year of D365 or of the system. So basically what this parameter now allows you to do is it gets propagated to all of the fixed assets by default. So that way when you are processing your fixed assets in the same fiscal year, so maybe you acquired a fixed asset and then a situation comes up where you have to dispose of it within the same fiscal year, and maybe you've done that before depreciation has been applied. This parameter allows that depreciation to be calculated within the same fiscal year as the fixed asset was acquired. So this is a new feature that has been turned on and is applicable and now applies to all of the fixed assets going forward when you create them brand new. Next slide. And then lastly, the tax calculation parameters when you use the advanced tax calculation function now is applicable to interest notes and collection letters. So what this feature allows you to do is beforehand, before you would have this feature enabled, this parameter did not allow you to use the interest and calculation documentation process with the tax calculation function that's now available in D365. But now with this new tax calculation process, and this particular feature that's been added to it, now you can track your taxes on the interest notes and calculation or collection letters, just like you would on sales transactions or purchase transactions and free text invoices. So this is a parameter that will now help you track that when you're using the advanced tax calculation service within D365. I know we've got a little bit more time for supply chain management. So with that being said, I will pass it on to Michael Kavanaugh. Thank you all for your attention.
Thank you, Brandon. Appreciate that. And as Aaron kind of hinted at earlier in this call, I'm Michael Kavanaugh. I am our Senior Supply Chain Management Solution Architect here at Avantico, and I'll be covering some of the 1043 enhancements that have come out with this release. Going to the next one here. So with 1043, there aren't a lot of features that kind of became new or that came new with this release, but some of the big things that did happen are some of the preview features from previous releases came off preview. So with these preview features, we generally don't recommend that you implement these in your production systems, but with these coming off preview, we wanted to make sure that we covered a couple of these major features for you to see. So one of them here, the first one that's showing up here, is called Unified Pricing Management, and this one is very major. This one actually is an entire module. So it's not just a feature that's being enabled, it's an actual module in the system that is becoming available in 1043. It's coming off the preview. So with Unified Pricing Management, it kind of reworks the existing sales pricing that was already in D365. So if you kind of recall, or if you've ever dealt with sales pricing in D365, it's fairly simple. It's fairly limited in what it can actually do. Your pricing is based on your customer or a customer group, or maybe an item in an item group, or maybe a category. And you can put limits on quantities, like prices up to a certain quantity that they buy, but that's kind of it. So with Unified unified pricing management, one of the biggest improvements that they made here is they introduced something called a price attribute group. And if you kind of look at this kind of top right image up there, it kind of shows you this price attribute off to the left there and how it touches all these different areas as part of your pricing. So with these price attributes, what these are is you get to define what you want your pricing, discounts, margin adjustments to be based off of. And this can actually be anything on the customer header. This can be anything on a sales header. This can be anything on a sales line. This can be anything on a product. Any field within those tables, you can actually now use to build your pricing. So if you want to build your pricing based on the region a customer is in, you can now do that. Whereas previously you had to use customer groups, right? Or pricing groups were really your only way to do that. You only had one pricing group to really kind of manage that. Now you can use any of these fields in any combination you want to make your pricing work. So with that, let me just kind of give you just a quick view of that within D365. So let me share my screen here. Give me a second here. Okay, so what I've brought up is a trade agreement, so with unified pricing management, we're still using trade agreements. So it's still the basis for your pricing. But now they're going to look a little bit different. If I choose to add a new line onto my trade agreement, what the system's going to ask me is it's going to ask me about header price attributes and line price attributes. So what I can do here is you can set up some predefined groups. Like for example, I've built one off the customer group, and this has a number of fields that I've identified that I can use in my pricing. So for example, the segment on a customer, the mode of delivery on the sales order, customer accounts there too, price groups, and all these fields that exist here we can choose. And for example here, I can say, what if I want to use only wholesale. I have a segment here called wholesale, and I want to make pricing just for my wholesale customers. Another thing that's nice with this is I can select this. I can use any type of query language I want. So I can use, I can exclude, I can use wildcards, I can use whatever I want to kind of choose the conditions here. So if you've ever used any of the advanced filtering in D365, you can use some of that same syntax language here. But one thing that's also nice here is you can actually preview who this is going to apply to. So this is based on my header. This is my customers, and I can preview results. So based on what I've selected here, the system's going to tell me who does this apply to? Who is this trade agreement going to apply to? So that's kind of a nice thing here too. And you can also do individual exclusions too. I can select here and say, for some reason, forced wholesalers, this doesn't need to apply to them, and it can go ahead and copy that query language back over to the other side here. So I can so here I have my header. Down here I have my lines, and I can say, well, on my lines I want it to be based on certain item numbers or categories, or again anything that exists on a product I could use. So if I wanted this to apply to maybe my this is Contoso data here, so if anybody's worked with Contoso data, you have your A items, which are your HDMI cords. So I could say maybe I want this to apply to any of my HDMI cords, and I can do the same thing here where I scroll down and I can preview my matching results, and it's going to tell me which products that this is going to apply to. So this is kind of a nice visualization as you're going and setting up your pricing. But this, again, just kind of shows you we can base this on anything we want. Okay. Second here. Oh, okay. It just doesn't like it worded that way. So I can list them out separately there. Okay, let me get back over to Aaron. Go ahead and share the same slide that we're on. So I just want, if we can go back to that one. So so this price attribute group, I just kind of want to show you what that looks like. So what I just showed you there was a trade agreement journal that covers the price. So that all that is it's helping you now build your price, and there's a lot more flexibility there because we can use a lot more different fields to build that price. Now, also part of unified pricing management, they've also added something called a margin component price adjustment, which previous to this, you kind of had to use a discount for this. But what we can do now is we can either add or subtract a certain percentage or amount onto prices as a whole based on anything from the price attributes again. So again, this could be the region a customer is in, maybe or maybe if the mode of delivery, if the customer's picking up, or if they're using truck delivery rather than air or something like that, we can either give them a discount or charge them more across the board, and this can be to every product, or it can be to a certain subset of products. So we just again have so much more flexibility here to kind of set this pricing. Beyond the margin component price adjustments, there's also discounts, which did exist previously in D365, but they were very limited also. Discounts were either, you could either do line discounts or you could do multi-line discounts, but they were all kind of based on a certain amount the customer had to buy in total or quantities or something like that. Now they've given us, again, more flexibility here. We can use the price attribute groups to define our discounts, but there's also different types of discounts that they've applied as well. So there's mix and match discounts where we could say buy 3 of a certain type of item and you'll get a discount across the board or get a discount on a specific item. Or you can even get a free item if they meet certain criteria. So they've really expanded the discount functionality here. You can also now require coupon codes. You can also have a fund associated to the discount. You can put limits on the discounts that say, the first 1,000 customers, first 1,000 sales orders get the discount, but that's it. Or there's a certain amount of money associated to it. When the fund runs out, then the discount stops applying. So now there's a lot more flexibility there in the discounts. And then beyond discounts, charges and rebates, they also can now use the improved price attribute functionality, which again can be based on any of these fields that we choose. Anything else I want to cover on this? No, I think I'm good on this one here. The last thing I want to mention here, go ahead and go on to the next slide. I think we have some more stuff on unified pricing management. Oh, I thought we did. I guess before I go on to the next thing, the last thing I want to mention with unified pricing management, there is now also logic with all these different discounts, all these different pricing margin adjustment. You can actually also control how they apply, in what order they apply. And then also with the discounts, you get to choose which ones take precedence. Can multiple discounts be applied or just the best one of a certain type of discounts? You actually have full control of that as well. So they've really delivered a full pricing solution to us now, whereas previously it was much more lacking. All right, you can go ahead and move on to the next one then. Okay, the other thing I wanted to talk about here is another feature that came off preview. So this one I think was introduced in 1040. This one is called tracked components. So what this allows us to do, this one has to do with manufacturing. And what this allows us to do is that we now have interfaces within D365 to record batch numbers and serial numbers when we're recording production. Now, previously, you could kind of do this. Like if you had a serial tracked item, you would have to do a production order of a single quantity if it was serial number controlled. And that's how the system would know which serial numbers get associated to it and which ones were part of the BOM. Now we can do larger production orders because they've given us the ability to go in and actually say for each one, what is the serial number, what's the batch number, and this is something I'll show you here in just a second. So let me go ahead and jump into the system here. All right, so what I'm showing you now is you should be seeing the production floor execution workspace within D365. So this is something that your users might be using at a machine or at a workstation down on the production floor, and they can interact with this to report production. So what I have here is I have a production order that I've already started, and I'm going to go ahead and select it here. This is an active job that my user is currently in and reporting against. But what there is now is there's a new option that we've added over here called tracked components. And when I click on this, what the system does is it shows me the item that I'm producing, and it also calls out any components that are part of that bill of materials of this item that are also a tracked component, meaning that it either has a batch number or a serial number associated to it. So when I'm in this, what that allows the user to do is it allows them to scan a batch or serial number that's associated to this. So I can say I'm going to scan batch 1. And when it does that, it goes ahead and applies that to the product that I'm producing. Now, once it has that, then it can start applying it to the components. So my component, I can scan the next batch that's getting associated to my component, which I see here. I have a composite case that's getting assigned to this. And when it does that, it goes ahead and puts that against the component. Now I can also kind of take a look at those two. I can go to the components and see what is recorded against them so far. And I can adjust how much consumption against that as well. And one thing that's also very nice about this is, so I have a production order here that I actually have 2 that I'm producing. And this actually is a batch and serial tracked item. So normally I wouldn't be able to do this. I'd only have to be able to produce 1 at a time. But what I can do here is I can actually hit the next button and it actually goes to the next item. So the first one I've recorded my batch number against, I can do the same thing for the next one. So it knows exactly what was consumed against each of those items. So we have this interface here within the production floor execution, but we also have it in the rich client as well. So if I go to the rich client, here's my production order, and I have my track components option here, and it's a very similar screen where I can go into this and I can either scan or enter a serial number or a batch number associated to the finished good or the components. So I have both places now that I'm able to do this. I can either do this against the production floor execution interface or the rich client. All right, Aaron, I'm going to come back to you here. Just stop sharing. And if you go back to the Okay, so with that, we can move on to the next slide. So I think on the next slide here, we should just have a number of other features that did come out with 1043. They're all much more minor, but we at least thought we'd call them out. These aren't, I'm not gonna have a demonstration to these, but I'll just kind of talk about these quickly here. So first one here, there's some enhanced vendor rebate management functionality that came out with 1043. The main thing that kind of came out with this, there's 3 features that are actually included as part of this, but the main thing here is that you can actually now consolidate vendor invoices for the same vendor within vendor rebates. There's also some other functionality about resubmitting things through workflows and just kind of some other process improvements. There are a couple improvements to the asset management section as well. There's with work orders with asset management, you're going out and servicing an asset that you're tracking in the system. Once you've actually adjusted actual hours, you can then have that now come back and adjust back to the forecast, which is kind of nice. That allows you to do that. There's some additional security feature that they enabled as well that allows certain statuses on your work order to only be edited by people of certain security status. So some additional security enhancements there as well. They've also improved some planning optimization with master planning functionality. Planning optimization kind of took over as the default planning engine within D365 quite a while ago, multiple years ago, but they've been adding more and more functionality to it with every single release. So as part of this release, they've added some functionality surrounding catch weights, so it can actually work with catch weights properly. It can now work with dimension-based product configuration. Previously, it could only work with predefined variant and configuration-based. Now it can work with dimension-based product configuration. There's some additional functionality regarding pegging between approved orders within planning optimization. So now with approved orders, if they're pegged towards something, when it goes and firms those, it holds the pegging. There's a parameter for that now. There's now functionality for step consumption on a BOM, whereas previously there wasn't, so there's an improvement there. You can go ahead and move to the next slide. There's some additional functionality surrounding available to promise and capable to promise. The first one here is regarding available to promise, where you can actually now exclude already reserved inventory from your available to promise calculation on your sales order. Previously, it included that and thought it was still available. So now there's a parameter to exclude already reserved quantities. The assign auto charge for purchase orders. This has to do with requisitions. When something gets converted from a requisition to a purchase order, if there was auto charges assigned to that, those now can copy over. I think that's a parameter as well. There's some functionality regarding work exception logs within warehouse management, some functionality to kind of clean those up, whereas there wasn't that before. Microsoft has been adding a lot of these cleanup jobs as some of these tables have been getting larger and larger, so they've been adding more and more cleanup jobs. So that's nice that they've done that. Within cost management, with weighted average, you can now actually select non-settled transactions to include if you really want to include this as part of your weighted average, whereas previously they had to be settled, financially settled. And finally, the last thing here that I have here is regarding capable to promise. So if anybody's using capable to promise, what they call this is near real-time capable to promise, whereas previously, if you try to use capable to promise, you likely had to do it through batch. So the system would have to you'd enter an order and the system would kick something out to batch and say, let me think for a second, let me run planning optimization, and let me figure out what your capable to promise dates are. It's much quicker now. It doesn't have to run through batch necessarily. So that's an improvement that they brought in here as well. And with that, that is what I have to cover on supply chain management. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, Brandon. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Chris. If there are any questions, now is the opportune time. You can, I didn't see any pop into chat, but if you want to pop anything into chat now, or even pop yourself off mute if you have a question you'd just like to voice to any of the experts here after their presentations, do not hesitate. Cool. I think we must have answered all your questions. Great job, you guys. Chris, if you want to do a little sign off, I think maybe shout out
Sure.
the ability to get the deck again, or the road mapping session. Yeah.
Certainly, yes. So just again, if you are interested in a copy of the deck, we have a very limited time today, and there's many features as you saw. We do explain these in more detail in the deck that goes along with this. Again, if you are a managed services customer, and I do see a good number of them on the call, you'll receive this, I believe, Friday of this week automatically. But if you're not currently a managed services customer with Avantico, if you put in the word deck, we'll make sure those get out to you. And as I mentioned also, we'll certainly be happy to meet with anyone that isn't currently a customer and be able to put together a roadmap for you for the year. There's no obligation there. We'll look at when your busy seasons are, when the service updates are coming out, and help you put together a plan over the year. Lastly, I'll say this is kind of an example of the expertise that we have on our managed services team. If you're not currently an Avantico managed services customer and you'd like to learn more about it, just put support in the chat and we'll make sure we reach out to you. We do offer a wide variety of different services. We help many customers with their service updates, putting it out, planning it, and getting it all ready to go to make sure you have a very successful update. So really appreciate everybody's time today.
Cool. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a great rest of your Thursday.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Likewise.
Thank you all.
Thanks all.
Thank you all. Great presentation.